Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV commentary, starting with one of my favorite shows, Big Brother. In this episode, I'm chatting about Celebrity Big Brother Season 3, Episode 9. It's Eviction Night, and coming into this episode, I was ready to know who would win the POV, who would be the next HOH, and who would be the next target. I think tonight's episode answered most of those burning questions, right? So there's a lot going on in the house. We've seen the house versus Shayna. We've seen alliances fall apart. We've seen how gullible some house guests are. We've seen Todd Bridges and other house guests explain the power of veto to Lamar again. We've laughed, we've cried. No, I'm just kidding. So we're at the beginning to see the real personalities and not just the Hollywood personas, in my opinion, right? We're seeing how these people really are. And there's a lot that's been revealed over the past few days based on how people are behaving under this pressure of being in the Big Brother house. All right, at the end of Sunday night's episode last night, we watched Carson win the HOH and all of the drama surrounding Shayna's strategy to play both sides of the house. And I still say her strategy, while risky, it was a good one that could have worked up to a period of time. When she chose to use the power of veto to pull Carson off the block, at that moment, she made a decision of which side of the house she wanted to play on. And that side was on Carson and Cynthia's side. And for the life of me, I just can't understand why Carson does not understand that. I can see why Cynthia can't understand it because she's not bright in the game. But Carson, for some reason, I want to believe, like, in his gut, he knows that I think he knows deep down. Well, I would like to believe that he knows deep down that getting rid of Shayna and everything that has gone on is not the right move for his game. But I don't know. Humans, we do things when we're pressured or feel that mob mentality. I'm telling you, that's the influence that it's having over here. Todrick and Misha were very good at manipulating Cynthia. She had influence over Carson, and this whole mob mentality against Shayna, he just couldn't lose his grip, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense or not. The fact that Cynthia and Carson, the fact that they don't believe that Shayna was on their side by taking Carson off the block, that still boggles my mind. Todrick knew exactly who to go to first to begin this manipulation, which was to approach Cynthia first because she's just easy to manipulate. She doesn't know what's going on with the game. She's not that bright. And so he knew to go to her because it was easy to manipulate her, and it worked, and good for him. That was a good gameplay for him in terms of shifting the target from Misha to Shayna. So that was good gameplay. All of the things that he said that were personal attacks and the lying in terms of harming Shayna's character, talking about her clothes and all that stuff and her marrying into fame, all of that was unnecessary. The strategic move to shift the target, that was good gameplay. But anyway, once Todrick had Cynthia hooked, then of course Cynthia has influence over Carson, and I really do feel down. I want to believe that Carson had an inkling that this wasn't right at all. But I did see him I think it was in the workout room where he was talking with Todrick and Misha, and he said Cynthia, he trusts Cynthia. Of course, we see that because they were friends outside of the house. And he says he trusts Cynthia because she has more street smarts than he does. And when he gets out of the house, he'll realize, hopefully he has that friend in his life that will help him understand why that thought was very wrong. Moving forward, so Todrick and then Misha were able to manipulate Carson and Cynthia into believing Shayna was a quote unquote snake and dishonorable because she was trying to play both sides of the house. I think calling her snake is a little over the top, but what do I know? I also think that Carson and Cynthia's ignorance in the game contributes to all of this, right? Because they don't know how to play. they don't know how to play. I mean, the mere fact that they got rid of Shayna reduced their number. That alone, I don't understand, you guys. But then again, I'm a fan of Big Brother, so those of us that are fans, was anybody else screaming like, "What is going on? What are you doing?" But nevertheless, Cynthia and Carson, neither of them know the game as well as Todrick and Misha, nor Shayna, right? They don't know the game. Todrick, Misha, and Shayna, they knew the game. I think NSYNC Chris knew the game up to a certain extent. I still think his move was a dumb move, but at least he knew a little bit more than Carson and Cynthia, I think. And can I really say that now? Because he's not there and they are. So that says something, right? But anyway, Carson and Cynthia are choosing to believe Todrick and Misha over Shayna. And we saw that all over the live feeds. We saw it in the last episode. And it's just sad. So as of last night's feeds, Shayna's not speaking to Todrick or Misha at all. And it's affecting Todrick, right? He has talked about it. He's talked about Shayna not speaking to him, to everyone in the house. And he has carried on with this for like hours. Well, maybe an hour or so. And what I've noticed in each iteration of him telling this story of how he can't believe Shayna is not speaking to him and all the things he's done to protect her and all of this stuff, he somehow becomes the victim in each iteration of his story. It's amazing how he does that. He says he doesn't understand why. He can't wait for everyone to see the footage. And not only that, not only was he being the victim or playing the victim, he was rewriting history. And for example, right, he said he didn't get personal or talk about Shayna, but then he thought he did, but he didn't. He said all the things that he did say about her was all game and it wasn't personal. And when he said that, I'm thinking, no, sir, you talked about how she dresses. You talked about her marrying a rich man, implying that she isn't as deserving as the rest of the cast to be in the house. You talked about how everyone else besides her in the house have worked hard for what they achieved and what they have, and she just married a rich guy. Like, again, implying like she didn't do anything in her life that would warrant her being in the Big Brother house as a celebrity, or she married a rich guy to gain fame. That's what you said, Todrick. That's exactly what you said. You didn't use those words. I should say that's what you implied, and it was disgusting, quite frankly. It's just hard to stomach him saying those things about Shayna, and just, oh boy, but he did say that. It's just funny to watch him trying to rewrite history, and he's a victim in his own stories. Anyway, he's tried to bring Shayna food and he's tried to talk with her, but Shayna's not having it. She is just not giving in, and it's bothering Todrick, right? Because he wants to be able to get away with the way he's treated her and what he said about her. And the fact that she's paying him dust, like, it's bothering him a lot. All right. It'll be interesting to see all of the house guests' reaction, especially Todrick, Misha, Carson, and Cynthia, if Shayna wins America's favorite player. On my timelines, I see people campaigning for that already for Shayna. Or do they say America's favorite house guest? But either way, online they're campaigning that Shayna be America's favorite player. And do they have that in Celebrity Big Brother? I can't remember. Do you guys know? You have to let me know in a comment. All right, so moving into tonight's episode, they picked up after the HOH nominations. The plan was to backdoor Shayna. This was as a result of Todrick manipulating Carson and Cynthia into believing that Shayna is a quote-unquote snake because she was playing both sides of the house. Todrick is so proud of himself. They showed him a couple of diary room sessions where he was touting how proud he was of himself. And I want to say, Todrick, be careful when people get comfortable thinking they're mastering the game. What is Big Brother's mantra? Expect the unexpected. But he's so full of himself right now, it's kind of blinding him, right? When Shayna explained her side to Cynthia in the episode I'm talking about now, it started off well because it appeared that Cynthia was giving her or having an open mind, right, in the conversation. That's what it looked like, and it started off well. And then Cynthia started talking. And she swears she thinks she knows what's going on. It's just sad. Okay, so when Cynthia said that the two of them, Todrick and Misha, let me back up. After the conversation with Carson, of course after the conversation between Cynthia and Shayna, Cynthia, of course, updates Carson. And when she was speaking with Carson, she said she did not believe that Todrick and Misha can concoct a story to stay in the game. And was anyone else yelling at the TV and saying, yes, Cynthia, yes, nodding your head, right? Yes, that they're doing just that. And you're falling for it. Like, I don't know if whomever's editing the episodes, if they read like what fans are saying and stuff, because that was just great. She's like, I don't believe they can concoct a story to stay in the game. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what they're doing. Oh, I loved it. All right, so Lamar shared his personal story about his relationship with his ex-wife, and Cynthia tried to offer him advice by saying, if being in the celebrity Big Brother house has taught all of us anything, it's to appreciate the small things in life. That was her advice to Lamar. And then she said she recommended that he reach out to her after he leaves the house. Now, okay, that was nice. But is that what you learned in the Big Brother house so far, Cynthia? Because I wanted to say you should be learning how to count in the Big Brother house. That's what you should be learning how to do, because getting rid of Shayna reduced your number, and now it's just you and Carson. And the way y'all perform, like Carson, yes, he may have a shot at winning something because he can, although tonight's puzzle, it didn't look, that was a mental, and the only people who did well in this competition this evening was Todrick, because he killed it, and Misha looked like she was coming in second, and the rest of them, they don't do well at puzzles. And that's a mental thing. So but anyway, I was going to say that Carson has a shot of winning a competition, right? The Cynthia, I think not. She won that Mon bag as a default. But yeah, Cynthia, you should be picking up other things in the Big Brother house, some lessons. And one lesson that I recommend is to learn how to count. So you know how many votes you're going to have, or, you know, what it takes to stay in the game. It's just like, it's 2 against the rest of the house now, right? At least you had a shot with Shayna. She knew the game. Cynthia annoys me, if you couldn't tell. All right, so the POV competition, like I alluded to earlier, Shayna, or it was a puzzle. Shayna was not able to play in the POV. It was by random draw that they did before they aired the episode. So as soon as I saw that she wasn't playing, I'm like, oh man, she, you know, because we all knew the plan after that. The POV was a puzzle. It looked like puzzle pieces like Tetris, if you ever played that game. Anyway, Todrick killed it. I mean, when you looked at the overhead shot that they had on the puzzles, it looked like I said, it looked like Misha was close to getting second if you were to do first, second, and third. And the rest of them, they're not good at puzzles. They're just not. I looked at those puzzles. I'm like, now you don't even have a piece that goes into that into that little hole, that 2-piece hole. It just, oh my god! Uh, it just was funny to me. Anyway, the game went a little faster than production expected, I think, because they took a lot of time to zoom in on Shayna, trying to see if they can pick up a reaction. And they kept the camera on her while they faded into the commercial. She was sitting there with Grace. She was all alone, like she's felt in the house for the past few days, but she sat there with Grace, and that was nice. I wish she maintained that before she left the house, but that's okay. She's human. She's allowed an emotion, especially with Todrick's shenanigans and his, passive aggressive speeches. All right, so at the POV ceremony, Todrick kind of rubbed it in Shayna's face, talking about karma, and she took down Todd Bridges, and Carson replaced Todd Bridges with Shayna. So now Shayna and Misha, they were on the block. I think that Todrick and Misha wanted the optics of Shayna versus Misha, like this was the competition. It just was bull. Anyway, I also thought that it was it was arrogance. It was arrogance. Todrick and Misha, them taking down Todd Bridges and putting up Shayna so it can look like Shayna versus Misha. And then both of their speeches, it was arrogance. And I'm looking forward to it coming back to haunt them. I hope it does. But it made for good TV, right? I suppose. All right. Misha, in her goodbye speech, she threw, not a goodbye speech, in her speech to the house guests to vie for their vote, right? Or to keep her in the house. She threw a little shade in her speech for why the other house guests should vote out Shayna. And the reason they should vote out Shayna is because Shayna was being shady. So Misha threw shade, saying vote out Shayna because Shayna is shady. The irony, right? Yeah. And what was Lamar doing? I mean, the struggle. What was he doing? I mean, he was gnawing on his nail bud. And it's like, do we need to go to commercial? Like, what is happening, Lamar? Just vote. I kind of felt I knew why he was struggling because he knows he should vote out Misha. But he doesn't really know, like, what happens if I do it? Then people will know, like, all of that was probably going through his head. And that was funny to watch. All right, so Shayna said she was going to try. Before Shayna. So anyway, the vote was 4-0. Shayna was voted out. Lamar finally wound up voting for Shayna. Everyone voted for Shayna everyone voted to evict Shayna. Before Shayna left the house, she hugged Lamar and she hugged Todd Bridges and told Todd Bridges she hopes he wins. And then on her way out the door, she said that she was going to try to talk to the jury. She told Todrick, don't worry, I'm going to turn the jury against you. And I wanted to say, I wish you didn't do that, but I really wanted to say, Shayna, you're going to find out really soon that you won't even have to do anything. Todrick is doing this all on his own. You won't have to do a thing, dear. Trust me. If America gets a vote, I'm telling you, there is no way Todrick is winning this game at all. If he makes it to the final two, he will not win, period. Doesn't matter who he's against. He will not win, period. All right, so Shayna is evicted by a vote of 4-0. Todrick is celebrating really, really hard, and he needs to calm down because this is Big Brother. Expect the unexpected. At the end of the episode, Lamar appears to be confessing that he was about to vote Misha out, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you saying, Lamar? Like, keep that to yourself. You should have just shared that with Todd Bridges and just, I want to believe all of this that Lamar is doing, I want to really believe that these are all tactics to confuse the other house guests. I really want to believe that. This way they won't be thinking about him, and he'll turn up the game, he'll turn on the game towards the end when he needs to. But I don't know. I'm kind of worried. I want to believe he's doing this on purpose. I really do. All right. So wait, Shayna's gone. Lamar is about to tell me. Let's see. By the way, if Misha was listening, she heard Lamar say that, and I wonder if that'll make Lamar become her next target. We'll see. But remember that Todrick and Misha has a deal now with Carson and Cynthia. They were going to start fresh. That's what they said. They're going to start fresh with a clean slate. And they're going to deal with the devil that they know rather than the one that they don't. They're going to start fresh. Remember that? So we'll have to see. I'll be watching the live feeds tonight to see what's happening, and I'll try to share important things in my next recap. Oh yeah, I did have a note. In the beginning, when they do the narration and they recap like the last time on Big Brother, did you pick up the reference to Blink 182? They said that Carson and Cynthia, after Todrick flipped the house, right, or threw Shayna under the bus, basically, Carson and Cynthia did a 182. You get it? 182. Carson and Cynthia did a 180. That's the term. That's the phrase. But they said 182. And you know why? Because Blink 182 was the name of Shayna's ex-husband's band, right? Travis Barker. He was a big deal. He was a drummer. He was a big deal in Blink 182. You get it? I appreciated that little reference. I thought it was really, really cheesy. But I like cheese. Okay, so that's it. I look forward to the next episode and hope you do too. I'm so excited to see how the HOH nominations play out. Oh, the HOH, who will win, and the nominations. I'm so stoked to see all of this play out. So I'll be watching the live feeds. Yep. And that's all I have. So be sure to come back and give me a listen. Like, follow, share, subscribe. You can leave me a comment, leave me a message. If you're listening to the podcast, there's a link to leave a message. So check that out. You can find me by looking for Chatter Out Loud. I have this podcast. I tweet. I'm on YouTube. So look for Chatter Out Loud and you'll find me. Yeah. So my name is Danielle and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I appreciate your support. That's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.